Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live podcast, Roasting Attorney Websites, Volume 1, with special guest Conrad Sam. I'm Nick Asensio, Director of Growth for Abogados Now. Founded in 2018, we're a California-based marketing consultancy that specializes in bilingual digital strategy for attorneys. We only work with attorneys, and we run a continuously growing number of tens of millions of ads per month in both English and Spanish. As bilingual legal marketing experts, we're delighted to share with attorneys across the country our insight on different topics regarding the legal space at our events, like this podcast being recorded live right now in Los Angeles. Today, we're going to be roasting the websites of two of our member law firms from before they started working with us, one employment and the other a personal injury firm. But don't worry, we're here to offer constructive criticism, and we'll show some of the updated websites that we built to improve upon everything that might not have been working out so well on the websites before. We'll get you the best practices to create a legal website that actually converts clients. And we'll give you a high-level overview of everything your website will need in 2021 and beyond to be competitive. We'll have an interactive Q&A session near the end of the show, so please submit any questions at any time during the presentation. In order to access the Q&A, please navigate to the bottom of the Zoom menu and submit your questions. And we'll ask your question on your behalf during our Q&A session if time permits. If you're interested in being a part of our next live podcast or website roast, feel free to let us know in the Q&A as well with your name, email, or phone number, and a short message letting us know how you'd like to collaborate. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our roast master for the day, someone who's made it his personal mission to connect underrepresented communities with the legal professionals they need. Please join me in welcoming the founder of Abogados Now, Hugo Gomez.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining us today. Thank you so much again for joining us. Our goal today is very deliberate. We want to provide you the best practices to build a site that converts. Now, there are a lot of fundamentals. In having a site, you need, clear, you need clear copyright, you need clear images. There's a lot of fundamentals that haven't changed, but attorney site standards are changing regularly now in light of what consumers want. So we're going to start off with what's changed the most in attorney site standards. And first and foremost, it's mobile friendliness. It used to be that your website needed to be mobile responsive or adapted to mobile devices. And that is no longer the case. You must consider what your site looks like on a mobile phone before any other device. We're also noticing that, there are more bilingual audiences than ever as there are today. And the latest census numbers prove that. So there is a massive opportunity to accommodate your online presence to account for both English and Spanish speaking markets. We'll expand on that in a moment. And it used to be that your website was the headquarters of your online presence. It no longer is just the ultimate destination. It's now an extension of your personality. The most successful attorneys right now are not the ones spending millions of dollars on television and radio and print ads, trying to put their name and face out there. The most successful ones are the ones that are really in front of the community, putting themselves out there, not trying to posture and be someone that they're not. They're really trying to be themselves and trying to be approachable and a friendly presence in the community and an authoritative person in their community. And so what's mostly changed in site standards is that consumers are now not looking at your website as the only place to validate their research on you. They're looking at your social media presence. They're looking at your LinkedIn profiles. And it does depend on the practice area, but ultimately consumers are doing more research than ever in both English and Spanish. So your website, yes, has to be this extension of your personality, but it should also validate everything else that you're putting on all these other content channels online. And no one knows that more than our special guest, Conrad Sam. He is more than just a nice competitor. Thanks for joining us, Conrad. Let me just give a brief intro on you. and then we'll get into a quick Q&A. But Conrad Sam is an ABA published author, for better, for worse, responsible for the growth of Avo, which we need to talk about. He is also
I try and duck this sometimes now.
So he's also the host of the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Podcast, which is the best marketing podcast for attorneys, hands down. And he's also the founder of Mockingbird, which you should not sign up with unless you also sign up with Avocados Now. So thank you so much, Conrad, for joining us today. How's it going?
Yeah, great to be here. Really great to be here. I was lucky back in 2006 getting involved in Avo when nobody knew what SEO was. And so I got to kind of ride the early wave here, but now it's kind of what everyone's talking about, right? It's almost all consuming in terms of the way people think about their marketing. We're so digitally heavy right now, and like it's not a surprise at this point, but it certainly was back in the day.
What prompted you to jump ship from Avo to start your own shop?
Well, so there's two answers to that. I'll give both of them. The first is bluntly, it was VC backed. It was very heavily focused on an exit, and I wanted to make sure that what I was doing continued to focus on the growth of small businesses, right? And so it became a enterprise. It was big, and my joy professionally is in like helping small businesses. I think there's a huge nobility in the American dream and entrepreneurship, and I enjoyed when I was marketing off early days teaching clients about the web and how it worked. And so this was just an obvious extension for me to move out of what turned into a very, very large kind of corporation and back into this kind of feisty entrepreneurial side of things, where I was working much more closely direct with lawyers building their businesses.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I kind of have a similar experience. I was at one of the nation's largest lead generators for attorneys, namely like injury law, and saw that we were helping a lot of mega firms just become even more mega.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, really small practices, especially new ones, couldn't have a chance to afford these products. So totally agree with you. I think I take a lot of pride in helping, in our company, helping a lot of small businesses grow from, something from nothing to something a little more meaningful. Totally get you there. So what are you seeing in, let's call it the last year, let's call it post-COVID. What are you seeing as the latest trends on your side of?
Oh boy, I wish we could call it post-COVID. I don't want to get into the politics.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there have been some interesting lessons from what I'll call the first wave of COVID. I think one of the most fascinating things that has come out of that is and this is a very self-serving comment, it's also backed up by the math. The people who stayed in the game have done so much better, right? And so even while you have seen declines overall in demand for attorneys, and that changes by practice area and by geography, like it is very, very different. So this, with a caveat that this is very different by geography and practice area. By and large, a lot of attorneys kind of turtled and kept their cash really careful. They pulled out of marketing. What's happened is the extent to which attorneys have pulled out of marketing, it was an overcorrection. And so those that stayed in actually saw, while their traffic was flat, they saw an increase in their conversions, right? So the leads, and this is a very blunt data I'll give you, but those clients that pulled their marketing back saw their leads drop by 20%, right? It's like, of course. What I didn't expect to see is those that stayed in actually grew by about 25%. So there was this vacuum that was able to be filled, right? And so that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, we saw the same. We saw it in mostly employment law, PI, workers' comp. Those are the three areas we saw exactly what you said. It was almost like the traffic was discounted because so many people held onto their cash.
Yep.
So, and right now, what are you seeing as the biggest opportunity? I know we're still in this pandemic of sorts, but do you see any glaring opportunities for attorneys right now on digital?
I'll give you two. I think if you're not in local service ads in your market yet, like get in there. That ship has sailed for most of you, but there are still, like you mentioned employment, there are still markets where the LSAs are still in their nascent state, which means the economics haven't really settled out, which means those people who are playing in LSAs are winning. And so that's something to think about. The other thing that I deeply, deeply believe this, the level of sophistication that you can bring to a small law firm from an intake and a CRM and a marketing engine is so amazing right now. And so what we're seeing are, and it's not lots of, but like we're definitely seeing this, the solo practitioner who is running their firm with the same level of technical sophistication that only the largest firms had 4 years ago, right? And so that level of sophistication and ease of use is becoming much more widespread, which means that if you're not, and so what happens with that level of sophistication is like, I can turn my marketing dials a little bit here, a little bit there. I can tweak these things because I got really great data analytics on this. And I'm pulling this out of the air, but if I make 2% improvement there and a 2% improvement there and a 1% here, across the board, my marketing improves by 20%. That's amazing, right? And so I really believe that CRM intake, nurturing clients, that the level of sophistication has really come down to the solo practitioner.
Yeah, I think that's the next trend. I think the initial wave of digital was client acquisition. We're so mature in that first wave that now it's ongoing branding, it's ongoing, preservation of brand in such a crowded digital market that every practice is going to need to invest in, companies like CasePeer or, other CRMs like that, where they can, automate so much of that communication. And we'll touch base on that in a moment.
But like, that's what you said. Like, you don't need more leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, I mean, universally that's not true. But if you're entirely focused on more leads, you're probably missing the boat. Part of what you should be thinking about at a very base level, I'll ask yourselves this question as you're listening to this podcast. How many of you know your answer rate for your phone?
Good question.
I bet you don't. I bet you have no idea. Right. And as I've asked my clients that, and I got their guess, and then I actually looked at the data, there was not a single law firm that I talked to who thought they were doing a better job at that than they actually were. Right. And so you guys all think you're doing a great job at that, but like that's part of what we're talking about here. It's not just you need more leads. You actually need to do a better job with what you have.
Right. So in order to get with what you have, you need to generate traffic, right? And that's a segue into the top 10 features. So, in order to have that database, in order to have that growing database, yes, you do need to focus on lead gen. You do need to focus on conversion rates. You need to focus on ultimately where it all starts, which is your website. So the first must-have that we find in 2021, we're going to repeat ourselves on mobile again. It's thinking mobile first. It's not mobile responsive. Don't adapt to mobile. Think about what your site is going to do on mobile before anything else. What have you seen on the mobile trends on your side, Conrad, at Mockingbird?
Yeah, I mean, this is a mind. Let me make sure I don't swear on your podcast by accident.
It's okay.
This is a mindset shift. Just because it's technically responsive does not mean it works really well on mobile, right? And so one of the things that you should be looking at, and additionally, you're going to have different conversion rates on a mobile experience than you have on a desktop experience, just because behavior is fundamentally different. So you can't just compare desktop to mobile conversion rates and expect them to look different, because they're going to look different because people function differently when they're holding a phone than when they're sitting in front of their desk. But this is starting with making sure not just that your site's technically responsive, that it can technically fit on a little baby screen, but that things like, I'll use a very, very clear example. Things like your chat vendor doesn't dominate your phone number, right? You're literally holding your phone. Someone who wants to hire is holding your phone, and some of the chat vendors go out of their way to mask your phone number. Like, why are you doing that? So like, that's a really, really clear, flagrant example, but there are more subtle things that you need to think about. The point being, start with what your site how it functions on the device and let that adapt to a bigger screen as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, 90, I think the average right now, and one of our ads managers, she could confirm this, Allie. I think we're at 92 or 93% of all traffic we're getting is mobile. So it goes without saying, that's where you have to be. And that's in both English and Spanish. Number two, must have, this is a big rule, especially on mobile where behaviors and short attention spans are so short. You need to tell us who you are, show us who you are and what you do in 5 seconds. The reason we say 5 seconds is because that's the average amount of time before a consumer says, I don't get this, I'm going to move on, I'm going to find your next competitor. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, Conrad, in terms of just hero sections and the first thing that people see when they click on a website.
Yeah, I think this is so I hate to throw props towards Scorpion, but I'll do it. The one you've got the who and what. The easiest thing you can do is the where, right? And Scorpion really did a great job early on of doing the city backdrop as the hero image on homepages. Yeah. And honestly, that communicates so much about you. And you can even take that a step further, right? So I'm up in Seattle, where Banana's about soccer. So if I want to communicate that I am an actively involved in the athletic community, in the sports community in Seattle, I can put my background image can be me at the Seattle soccer stadium, right? Like there's things that you can do where you can communicate personality, but also that sense of location is very, very important because people do want a local lawyer. Like they want to know where you are. And I think that is it's an asset that a lot of people fail to lean into. If you've got the leather-bound books or the scales of justice with their top falling off, right? Like, come on, right? Like there's more to law than proving that you're a lawyer.
Yeah, and if you're statewide, make sure your landing pages are exactly what Conrad mentioned. Make them local. You have to have distinct experiences for distinct markets.
Yeah.
Number three, double down on video. We are big fans of video, not just because we advertise a lot on social media and it's very cost effective to get high quality calls through social video ads, but namely it's a great feature on your site because it will keep someone on your site for a longer amount of time. You know, it's standard in our sites whenever someone opts into video to have a big fat play button right there as one of the first things someone can click on and interact with. That is by design. That is very intentional in both English and Spanish because we want people to get to know the firm well before they called in. And that's what consumers want. They don't want to kind of call in and guess. They want to get to know you before they've even met you. Well, have you seen the same trends on your side?
Yeah, so I'll add a couple of thoughts to that. On the video side, so consumers are getting smart. And if they, specifically because we're talking about Spanish, I think consumers are starting to realize that there are a lot of Spanish websites out there for firms that actually don't speak Spanish, right? Yeah. And the easiest way around that is to be speaking Spanish in a video. Like that communicates a level of genuineness that I think is actually really important. The other thing I'll add on video, I don't know if you're doing this or if you're seeing this, but I do love this. There are video email services out there that I would thoroughly recommend. There's a service called BombBomb. We don't use them because we work mostly within HubSpot and the video functionality within HubSpot. But like there are a bunch of video email services, so you can have. Like you talked about the shows who you are, the who you are comes across in video, and you can take that a step further. I just sat down with you for an initial consultation. I'm going to follow that up, right, with a video that just summarizes things. Hey, sorry to hear about this accident. Here's some of the things that you should be thinking about doing right now. Don't forget to file the blah 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 paperwork. And you can let the more of who you are seep into that through video, and I think that's really, really. I'm just surprised that lawyers aren't doing more of that. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just generally speaking, legal is generally a few years behind, fintech, just financial and medical in general. It seems like legal is always really slow to adapt for one reason or another. But to your point, it's going to happen. I mean, there's services like Loom, right? Or we've even seen some wild AI technology where you can create a template video and with AI have the mouth move and have audio change pursuant to the customer's name or the client's name. So we are on the cusp of a lot of video and automation and the employment of AI in these solutions, which are all really cost effective. They're not out of reach for most solo practitioners.
Yeah, I mean, just jump in the game, right? It's here, and you're right. A lot of people are kind of lagging behind, especially on video, which surprises me because
Yeah.
it's you can look like a very very tech savvy attorney just by having a piece of software on your laptop, hitting record, have a quick conversation, and boom, like it's so easy.
Yeah, great point. So, in addition to that, obviously Avocados now exists to accommodate both English and Spanish speaking US based audiences. Going bilingual is not a translation exercise. You can't have the flag of Spain that automatically changes to, Google Translate's version of whatever
Right.
English copy you have. That doesn't work anymore. What works in English generally won't work in Spanish and vice versa. At Avocados now, we do have two distinct teams. We have an English writing staff and a Spanish writing staff, and it's church and state. So what we find is that we just produce better converting copy on both landing pages, on home pages, et cetera, which yield more signups. Because what happens is you're positioning yourself as an authentic participant in the community in both languages, namely in Spanish.
Hugo, a couple things. One is the other side of this that you're making the assumption that the audience is thinking about, which they're probably not, is getting the technology right.
Right.
Right. So this is not. I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples of where it's wrong. This is not a page that says in Spanish we speak Spanish. That
Correct.
is not a bilingual site.
Correct.
A bilingual site is also not a bunch of Spanish content built like shoehorned into an English navigation, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a terrible experience. And then there's hreflang tags, which gets more deep into the code of things, but it actually defines like, hey, this is a page about car accidents in Spanish, and here's the same page about car accidents in English. So these are all kind of technical things that probably the audience doesn't need to know, but
Sure.
you do need to know that it's important to get those things right. And that's, I know you guys do really good work on that. And so that's why I want to call that out, because it is important that it's not just Spanish words somewhere. It's done correctly. And I see these mistakes. So there's a lot of Spanish content out there, right? It used to be that like I could throw up a multilingual site and we would win everywhere because no one else was doing it. It's a little bit more competitive now, but the implementation is not done universally well. And so I think that's a really important thing to stress, because I know you guys do it right. And I still see 9 times out of 10, this is done incorrectly.
Yeah. I mean, it's every time we onboard a new member, we oftentimes have to rebuild the whole thing. And that's because, to your point, it's done incorrectly. There's a lot of shortcuts done. And as far as we've come in AI and automations on language tools, we are nowhere near automations on translations because there's a lack of cultural nuance. And so, and you have to assume, every market of Spanish speakers is inherently different. Spanish speakers in Southern California are different than those in South Texas, than in Florida, than in the tri-state area. Totally different markets. And, you could make major mistakes, and we see them all the time if you do it wrong.
Yeah, I was going to actually prompt you on that. Like, how do you you very much look at, for example, San Diego versus Florida as being very fundamentally different from a language strategy perspective, correct?
Yes, it is. There's a shorthand. There are generally different values. These are generalities, right? But they generally go back to a lot of historical data on how, certain people come into the country very differently. Yeah. And that really is the centerpiece to like the value system in the United States. Yeah. So it's not just the shorthand or the slang or the language. It's also, we have to generally get a sense of where they're coming from. And, you have to do it right, because to that example of Florida versus Southern California, they are completely different markets.
Right. And you just look like a schlocky marker if you don't do it right.
Yes, that happens all the time. It happens all the time. So we also want to make your phone number prominent we call it above the fold. So the first thing that the consumer sees, every marketer has a different perspective on this. We generally have 2 rules. Phone number needs to be prominent at the top. You have to have the right code and tracking to make sure that that phone number flips depending on where that traffic is coming from. So that's critical. And we also want the form where people fill out their information to be at the bottom of your site. This is just a standard in our practice, or rather in our consultancy. It's only because we find that, at the top, it's a much more passive consumer. If they're scrolling down and reading your content, we're just talking about your homepage, they're likely more qualified when they fill out the form at the bottom. They're not just filling out every form on every site that they're going to. And that does, having a form and a phone number, generally speaking, in our bilingual sites is standard. We try not to cloud it with too many options. One of the biggest mistakes we see attorneys make is that they confront their consumer with 19 different options of how to reach out to them. It's like, fill out this form, call us now, here's a chat box, here's Facebook Messenger, leave us a drop line. It is insane. You don't want to give consumers too many options in that sense. So what's been your experience at Mockingbird with being deliberate on the options that you're giving consumers?
So I think there's a couple things here. One is you need to be, it's very clear that there are two pieces of data that I think about when I think about these conversions. I call these contact types. One is they do not convert into that initial consultation at the same rate. They just don't. So I'll give you, and I need more data on this, but I know that across my client list, if you fill out a chat or if you call someone, you're more than twice as likely to sit down for an initial consultation if you call someone than if you fill out that chat. So that's kind of point number one that's key for me on conversion. The other thing about contact type is not everyone wants to pick up the phone and talk to you right now. Right. And there are very good reasons for that. Like I'm thinking about leaving my wife, but I'm sitting at home. I don't want to pick up the phone because the kids are here. Right. So you do need to give people the optionality to contact you the way that they want to. There has to be a quiet version to contact you. And the final thing is, if you've got all these different ways to contact you, you need to be monitoring every single one of those 24/7.
Yep.
And so that is a massive problem. If you make it really easy to text you, which sounds really great, but at 2:00 in the morning, you're not responding to those texts, right? Because you're not. Maybe that wasn't a great option, right? And so you really complicate your intake when you give a litany of options for that user.
Great point. And so
there's a balance.
Yeah. And so to that point, if you're getting all this data, whether it's from chat, phone calls, emails, web forms, you have to nurture that data. There are so many technologies and very low bar of entry, very cost-effective options, so many of them, where you can routinely send text and emails. Like the old days, used to send out calendars and magnets, and it would be cost prohibitive. And most of the time, people just throw these things out. You no longer need to do this. What you can do, which is way more cost-effective, is just routinely email and text your database. If you've paid for this traffic, if you've invested in this traffic, just be in front of it. You've already captured it. Be on top of mind, because at some point, those folks, if not them and their loved ones or friends, will need some type of legal services. And so you want to make sure that you're always top of mind through automation. This is something that we've just started offering since the early part of this year, email and text integrations. We've built out a lot of databases for many of our members, and now we're just really making it a standard to routinely push their message in front of them. Has that been a part of your experience at Mockingbird?
So I think one of the looking forward, you started this off with the looking forward question. By the way, privacy is a tsunami that's going to hit the marketing world really hard. Mm-hmm. More and more people are opting out of cookies, tracking, etc. And so your ability to connect and retarget to that database is going to be degraded. What that means to me is part of the job of your website, and I haven't gotten deep into this yet, but it's certainly something I'm thinking about. Part of the job of your website is to engage and interact. It's not just having a session that doesn't connect with you. It's actually engaging, connecting with that person, even if they're not going to hire you right away, because that is the permission that you need in order to continue marketing to that person. But yeah, so like, so that's a big picture thought that I don't really have a solution for right now. But to your point here, email and text reminders, like it's like you guys get this all the time, right? So, okay, we've set up a meeting for 9:30 tomorrow morning to go over the intake. At 9 o'clock, you better get that reminder email, right? Just so they show up, right? And there's a lot that you can do with this set and forget stuff that's really, really valuable.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and it's all, again, low bar of entry, very cost effective. You know, we use Calendly all the time.
Use Calendly.
Automated reminders, amazing, you know, and it gets people aware that they have appointments, gets them more committed, takes you more seriously. So I'll rattle off these last three, but ultimately we need you to show off your trust badges. You know, your trust badges, what are they? Those are your Super Lawyers Awards. Those are your local, you know, best place to work awards. It's anything that establishes more credibility. Yes, you acquire these in very different ways. You know, sometimes questionable, sometimes not, but ultimately, we want to showcase that you are more than just a business. You are a presence in either the legal community or the local community. We also want you to focus on solutions-focused copy. Solutions-focused copy is really what your practice will do to help that client. When clients are on your website, they already have a problem. They don't need to understand the definitions of, you know, a spousal custody or child custody or auto accidents or workers' comp. They already are interfacing with these issues. What they're looking for is how are you going to help them? So focus more on solutions copy. And lastly, you know, we call it mahogany desk marketing. You got to kill mahogany desk marketing. It doesn't work anymore. No more big desks. No more imagery of legal books. What consumers want now, they want to be able to trust you. They want to be able to see that you're approachable. In Spanish-speaking audiences, they want to know that you have a friendly bilingual staff that they can speak to in confidence. It's a totally different game. You can't yell at a camera anymore. You can't look mean on a photo or aggressive. That may play well in certain markets, certain practice areas, but generally speaking, people want, you know, a partnership that they could really opt into for a long time and endorse with their loved ones. What are your thoughts on these last three, Conrad?
I mean, the trust badges are important. I know they change conversion, and the irony of that, of course, is that, like, I'm an ex-Avo guy. The badges drove more conversions. We know that. The cruel irony of this is no one who sees these things know what the heck they are. Right? I mean, you could just put a gavel and some wheat shafts and make it look gold, and like all of a sudden you have a trust mark, which is what like some dirty companies, Lawyers of Distinction is one of them. It is a absolute bullshit award. Sorry to swear on your podcast, but like it is. Having said that, the trust marks work.
Right.
And the mahogany desk branding, like that's you brought this up in number 2. Show who you are. Who you are is like the person behind the degree. Right. And people hire people who happen to have a law degree as opposed to a law degree that happens to be a person. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, let that come screaming out, because you know what? That's how people make their hiring decisions. They're hiring the person behind it. Right. And that's so important.
You know, it's funny. Real estate has figured this one out at such elite level. They know how to be your friend. Right. The real estate agent, at least the top performing ones, they know how to be your friend. And that's I think they're no different here. It's a different service, but it's very service oriented. It's all about customer service and solutions.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for giving us your insight on our top 10 list. I want to bring in our first attorney guests, Malasek. Apologies, we're having a bit of a technical issue. Here we go. All right, one moment, please. Okay. Malasek, Rob, can you please turn on your cameras and your audio? Thank you so much for joining us. So Malasek Burgess, Rob Myers, they are PI attorneys in California. They are members of Abogados now for the past couple months. And you know, what I want to do right now is pull up your old site and compare it to what we've just built to you. Not just as an advertisement, but because there's a lot of mistakes that people have on their sites today that could be corrected based on that top 10 list. So Conrad and I will be going over this. So first and foremost, let's take a look at your current site. Your new site is not up yet. We're going to show off your new site in a moment. Can you tell us a little bit about how this this site came to be?
Sure, I'll go.
Rob, yes, thank you.
We we did a lot of research actually, and tried to find a good company to build our site. I found somebody that said that they were, or looked like they were in the top 10 of law firm building sites. It was called JurisPage. I think they got bought by somebody, but we had less than a great experience with them.
Got it. And so, you know, what was the experience like in producing this? Was there a back and forth on all these items that we just discussed in our top 10 list? Or was it more, did you feel like it was just more of a transaction, just getting a website up?
Absolutely just a transaction. I don't remember any back and forth, honestly, about all of the things that you were just talking about.
Got it. So Conrad, what are your initial takeaways from their current site, their old site?
I mean, there's a couple of things that jump out to me. The biggest omission here, well, sorry, there's at least three big omissions here. One is it kind of looks like the name of the firm is missing, right? It looks like we're still in progress here. And so like, I don't know what the name of the firm is. I don't have like, there's not a single name on the homepage, which is problematic. The second thing, when we talk about phone numbers and you talked about the persistent and sticky phone number, that 213 number is not built into the header. And so as soon as I nav off of this, I can't contact you, especially if I'm sitting on my phone. And then finally, and I got deeper into this, but there's no specificity around the content here, right? And so what I mean by that is it's a really thin piece of content. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to do if you're listening to the podcast is do a site colon search. Site colon is just SITE. Go to Google, type in SITE colon, and then put in your website just completely naked, like bmfirm.com in this case. And that will give you all the pages that are indexed on the site. And in this case, we've got 12 pages of content, right? Which there's a lot more than 12 pages of content. That would put, like I'm dealing with sites that have 800 pages of content, which might be too many, right? So there's an appropriate balance here. But it's a small site. And I think the lack of the name up in the header, it's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and so couldn't agree more. The first thing that comes out is the 5-second rule. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. I don't know where you're based if I don't really know. You know, I generally know 213, so you're in LA. But, you know, I think that there's a lot to be said of just above the fold. And by the way, got a couple questions about that term above the fold on the Q&A. So above the fold is really this area here that you're looking at immediately before you start scrolling. And we also see a few other questions that we'll get into at the end of the program. So please stick around. We're not ignoring you. We just want to make sure that we're getting everyone in and out on time. So, you know, just curious, Malisak, you know, when this was launched, what was your initial gut instinct? What was your immediate reaction?
There's no way I'm going to let this go live.
Got it.
I was just dead set on it. You know, it doesn't represent who we are. And I wasn't proud of it. And so that's very important for me.
Rob, like, what did you want when we started talking? What was the first thing that you really wanted us to accomplish in your new site build?
I wanted to make it more up to date, a lot more content.
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
a little better mobile friendly.
Got it. I mean, if we just take a look at this, the list here, you know, mobile first, we already experienced it on mobile. It collapses really awkwardly. It's not the best. You know, we don't see number 2. We don't know who you are. There's no video, which is a great sticky, you know, device on your site. It's not bilingual. To Conrad's point, your phone number is missing from your header. There is no form, I believe, at the bottom. Email and text reminders, we're working on that together. Trust badges, solutions copy. So as of right now, you're at 0 out of 10. So I think, fortunately, we got you to a point where you are absolutely a 10 out of 10 right now. Your new site's about to launch soon. And if you don't mind me walking you guys through just the hero section, We know what the firm is. We know what they do. We know that they're confident in being on video and putting themselves out there. We even know that when we click on Spanish, we're going to address the Spanish markets very specifically with vencedores legales, which is their Spanish identity. So it's a completely different experience now. Conrad, what are your initial thoughts on this before and after?
Yeah, I mean, like it looks like someone's actually hired someone to build a website. It's important. I think this is like one of the things that you've used, and we didn't even bring this up, but that shines through when we're looking at this, is you use professional photography for this, right, Hugo?
Yeah, that's a standard. And we don't just hire any photographer. Like, we have photographers across the country who do major shoots with major publications who have a lot of credibility.
So I will tell you this. I think one of the easiest ways to up the level of professionalism on a site is to do professional photography. And so point number one. Point number two is the spectrum of professional photography is very wide, right? And so I think that's a really key, important thing to notice. I'll also tell you, there are right now hundreds of starving wedding photographers who want to do something, right? And so there's lots of opportunity to really make this photography. It's like the cheapest way to make your site look absolutely bespoke and amazing. And I think you did a great job with that.
Nailed it. Thank you. Appreciate that. And one of the things that we really press on, especially for very high competitive practice areas, is video. So whenever we're showcasing video, it's really clear that we're not trying to over dramatize what it means to be a lawyer. We really just want to get to know you. There are a lot of major companies out there that do video who try to make these, Academy Award winning segments. You don't need to do that. It's not that important. If anything, the consumer's kind of turned off by that. They really just want to get to know you. And so in English, there has to be a very different video than what you have in Spanish. What we often employ is a Spanish-speaking spokesperson. And so what you'll find is whenever you click on these play buttons in Spanish, you get a completely different video. You get a Spanish-speaking spokesperson who is a representative of the firm. This is huge because, in Spanish marketing, again, generally speaking, it's about community endorsement. It's not about the attorney selling themselves, especially if they don't speak Spanish. We're always big on using spokespersons in Spanish. They just perform better, they convert better, especially on Facebook and Instagram and video ads. Spanish-speaking spokesperson just have a higher engagement rate. So, to Conrad's point, yes, photo is low-hanging fruit, and you just need to find the right photographer to get you to look, very, very glossy. Video, I would say, is the second step there. It's cost-effective, and it really shows a lot of confidence compared to most of your competitors. So, Rob Malisak, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to head out, so thank you so much for being part of today's program.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Hugo. Appreciate it.
All right. So thank you. So if you don't mind turning your cameras and your audio off, we'll be in touch in a moment. Would like to now invite, let's see, right now we have Linda and Ed. Do you mind turning your cameras on? Awesome. Linda and Ed are from Lara and Luna. They're employment attorneys, also in California, members of Abogados Now. So before we begin, I just want to mention that today is the 10th anniversary of Ed and Laura. Coincidentally, another couple, a married couple attorneys. So congrats, Ed and Laura. Ed mentioned it yesterday. Wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
So let's get into your prior site, which is archived. Your new site is now live. But let's take a look at your prior site. This one's tough. Conrad, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, there's, we've got it looks dated again, right? Like it's the scales of justice. I don't love the scales of justice on as the logo. It's just very, very cliche, and I don't love it. The other thing is we've got a broken something or other up here, right?
Yeah.
So don't love that at all. But ultimately, like, you're trying to talk about where you are. Just actually, and this really demonstrates my point. Serving Los Angeles, Riverside, and San Bernardino. Like, I have to read that. You can say that with a picture.
Yeah.
Right. You can say that with a picture. I also don't believe this translates very well from a responsive perspective into a mobile, right? It's just, it's a mess.
Yeah, it collapses very, very unusually. Yeah.
Right. So like, what's a menu, right? So go back to that. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's actually bring that back, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
And
so
broken.
It looks like someone has half finished coding the site. And can you click on the Our Team?
Sure.
I mean, these are all archives, so we'll see what's actually
Yeah.
available here. But you know, it's fine.
I mean, we've got some content. So, Linda, can you tell us about not who put the site together? We don't want to, out anybody in that case. Like, tell us about the experience of getting to this point.
Right. Well, we were obviously not really too happy about our website. I knew it was dated, and it got to a point where we were solely getting clients from other attorney referrals, and it just, we talked to the same company, and they were trying to keep us as a customer. And Ed actually brought up a good point, which is kind of the analogy of you've been kind of a bad boyfriend or girlfriend to us, and how are you going to change things? And they really didn't give us a good response. For this website, I think they didn't really give us photographers compared to your website. They didn't. We said we wanted video. I thought it wasn't really clear on what we did. It just said fighting for your rights at work. I wanted more direct language, such as wrongful termination, sexual harassment. And they just wanted us. I think we even came up with our own logo. I think we just hired someone. So it was kind of a cut and paste job. And it's a really big organization that we're working with, and it just was not what we were looking for. And Abogados now, you've been really marketing heavily. We saw some of your work, and so we were really, we talked to you and you sold us, and we've been really happy.
Linda, I have a question on this. How old is this site? The old
it's
one.
Not that old, actually. It's maybe about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so like in all fairness, in the web world, that's kind of old, right?
Yeah.
But it looks like it probably looked old 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
I'm
yes,
kind of
but
surprised
I just wasn't
actually
getting feedback from the company telling us like, hey, this is outdated, let's update it. Whereas
100%.
Abogados now is always very receptive to that.
Yeah, 100%.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So let's take a look at the checklist again, because it's always good to know. All right, it's not mobile first. We see a broken menu. Goes without saying, you have to have your menus working. We really don't know who you are and what you do. If I sort of get a sense of that, I'll give you a half a point on that one. No video. No, I mean, so this is a very common mistake that we see with attorneys. It's going bilingual often means it's like cornered off Spanish page that's on the back side of the site. Obviously it's not sufficient for Spanish marketing. You have to have a completely separate Spanish experience. Prominent phone number, let's see. Not on the header. I mean, it is on the homepage. We've got a form at the bottom. Let's see if we have that. No form. No form capture. We need a form capture. Trust badges,
and especially
done.
In employment, right? So like, think about that. I'm annoyed I'm in my office. I'm pissed off, and I do not want to get on the phone and talk to an employment lawyer. I just don't. And so this is a classic example of where you really need an alternate way to contact you that does not involve the phone.
And we actually get that. We get a lot of people that are like, I'm on my break, and they're whispering
Totally.
while on the phone. So yes, you definitely need a contact form.
Yeah.
I'm in the parking lot, right?
And so solutions focused copy, I mean, this is something that we see with a lot of general agencies that work with plastic surgeons and coffee shops. They just write about definitions with these really kind of empty promises, fighting for your rights at work.
So Hugo, one of the questions, I'll just play host here. One of the questions was like, what do you mean by solutions focused copy? Can you go a little bit deeper? Like give from an employment perspective, give an example of where you would go with that.
Yeah, that's so essentially it's telling us what you're going to do. It's how you're going to do it. It's as basic as telling us we're going to have a call with you. You know, these days we're going to have a Zoom meeting with you. And this is exactly what the process is going to be if you're facing a discrimination case or a wage and hour case, etc. It's really showcasing the steps. Now, on the site, you don't see it as much as you do on the specific advertising landing pages. So on the sites, it's a blend of both. You need to market and speak a little generally, especially in employment law. There's a lot of different issues that people look into. But in advertising specifically, for instance, in Ed and Linda's campaigns, we have unique landing pages depending on the types of employment law issues that consumers are facing. So it's really solutions focused is talking about what to expect in the whole process and what the hopeful outcome is. And it's talking more about solutions, not so much definitions. And so, I would say that there's no mahogany dust branding only because there really is no branding here. I mean, we see some, scales of justice here, but ultimately there's not much here. So, before I pull up your news site, Ed and Linda, Ed, can you tell me what it is you were looking for on your news site that you think we accomplished for you?
I was looking for something that, like you said, you were talking about people's personality coming out. I think Ed and Linda and I are like strategically geared to try to embrace the Latino community. We're Latinos, we're minority owned. And I think you accomplished a lot. And also, I didn't see really much feedback from the old place. And I mean, I was concerned about that because they were just kind of letting us be in the background. There was no follow-up. We weren't even looking at our metrics. This website is basically just a template. They slapped it together and then try to sell us on their advertising in their own website as opposed to going into Google. They own their own directories. So it just wasn't something that I felt I needed. I think now we're getting a few more hits from people locally. I mean, I think that there's more of an explanation of what SEO is. I mean, we just basically purchase into a website behemoth and a system that they have, and they just kind of assumed we'd be happy with it, which is why I asked them. It's like, why am I going to keep going with you if this isn't working? Because every 4 years they want to re-up on our contract, and I needed something different. I think I got that.
Got it. And this is a recommendation to all of our guests, all of our attorney guests today. That top 10 list is just one of many lists. This is what we want to talk about today. But have a list ready of what you want when you're talking to a marketing partner, whether it's Avocados Now or Mockingbird or any other company. Make sure that they show you proof of the work that they've done that meets that checklist and standards. Because if you don't set expectations up of what you want, they're just going to give you whatever you want with the lowest common denominator deliverability. What are your thoughts on that, Conrad?
This is going to come across as really obnoxious, but I can't help myself. I'm surprised that either of these two before sites were actually done by an agency.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and this is why it's so important. Like, that's just not me being mean-spirited. This is why the listener should care. If you think about a site having a conversion impact, right? So most of the time, I'm wrong about this, but imagine it as a spectrum. 80% of websites don't have an impact on whether or not they call you, right? On whether or not that prospective client calls you. 10% of them are so well done from a messaging and positioning and imagery perspective that they're actually going to encourage someone to call you who otherwise may not have, right? It's going to be something that tips the scale. And it's at most 10% of the sites out there. And then you have the bottom half of this, and there are definitely sites where it's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not going to call them because this looks like crap. I think there are, and I mean, that is like your worst case scenario. You do all the hard work to be an amazing lawyer. You do great lawyering. You do it with great, what I call bedside manner, customer service. You get that referral, the referral checks you out. And then they're like, seriously, they couldn't afford a website that looks like my 15-year-old built it as a high school project. And so like, I think it's really important. Like, by the way, going to that final 10%, like someone's asking about cost here. Some of our sites run in the, I don't know we can talk about cost a little bit, but like we do sites over 30 grand, right? And those are designed for really high volume practice areas or practices that are like a 1%, 2% change in the conversion makes a difference. On the other end of that spectrum, if you're a really small shop and you're not going to drop 30 grand on an amazing website, that's usually fine. But you want to make sure that you meet this bare minimum where you're not turning people off because it looks like you're honestly, it just looks like your kid built this in front page 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That will hurt you.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's true.
It is true. I mean, it's like restaurants. It's your storefront, online, your website is your storefront. If it's dirty, if there's dust everywhere, if it smells like, house cleaner, it's going to churn out people and not make them go to your restaurant. This is no different. So kind of goes back to this earlier slide that your site is an extension of your personality, how you operate in your business, how you treat your clients, this is what people really see when they go on websites. So let's go into the after. We've got a totally different experience. Now, this is actually live now, Laura and Luna. So again, very heavily focused on video. But one thing that I like in this site particularly is that we're dramatic about the offering. It's that, Ed and Linda are going to stand up to your boss. Like that's so direct. It makes them an ally of the distressed worker. So out of the gates, we know what you look like, we know what you do, we know what you're going to do for the consumer, and the videos, further that. So we have our trust badges here. Again, professional photography. We want to showcase you in the best light as possible. Testimonials. We want to showcase what it is exactly that the firm is going to do, but in a way that's digestible, in a way that it doesn't feel like law school. So, what were your initial thoughts when we launched, Ed?
Well, I mean, it required me to, I got what I wished for because I wanted more attention. I want more detail in it. And when we launched, it was great. Every time I asked for something, it came up. If there was little changes that needed to be made, you guys were responsive to doing it. And I think it conveys a image we want to put out there, and that we genuinely care about our clients. We genuinely want to work on what they give us. And, we have an emotional connection to this. We're passionate about it. And
it's great. Yeah. And, we already see it. We just started running your ad campaigns. It's already made an impact. We're generating call volume out of the gates. We get this question all the time. Is this going to take 3 to 6 months to get a single call? Like, no. Can you speak to that? How quickly you were able to generate qualified calls?
I think Linda knows more about that than I do, but I have noticed, I've been forwarding them. I have noticed there's been, it is night and day. The old one, like I said, we didn't pay my niece to start up our website. We paid one of the top internet places, firms, and legal research websites to do it. And it just was just a cookie cutter. And now we see the fact that we are getting a lot more calls. We're getting more hits from more local areas. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. I think and I like the fact that before it was a template. Okay, we'll give you 8 pages. That's all you get, as opposed to having a full website, pushing a bilingual button, and it just converts the entire thing into Spanish and gives us the opportunity to speak to our clients directly in Spanish.
Yeah, it's great. And so Rob and Malisak, Ed and Linda's story is not unique. This is fairly standard. This is one of the most extreme examples we've seen. This is Kirk Donnelly. He's one of our newest members as well. He had a site that was built, it looks like 15 plus years ago. He was very generous enough to allow us to share his story. Very similar, hired someone. They gave him something that obviously wasn't working. This looks like a site that was made, in 1999. And when I met him, he was so charismatic and he had a great story about his work in employment law that we knew he would crush it. And so he's launching his new site, I believe on Friday or Monday. And it's just a standard in our program. We want to talk about who you are, not necessarily about the law. This is just the next wave of legal marketing. It's really talking about the attorney in English, and in Spanish, it's how you're impactful and positive to the community. So Ed, Linda, thank you so much for joining us today. Rob Malisak as well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I would like to go to the Q&A. How about this? Let's start with this one by Lynn Bassis. Conrad, what is a hero section?
Yeah, so I mean, heroes is basically this image when you look at a homepage, right? Like, what is that primary image that's showing up? We call it, hero graphic or something. But that's where, for me, you have that "don't make me think" moment where you understand who this lawyer is, what they do, and where they are, right? And that's key.
Yeah, great point. Heather Harp asks, does the video slow down the site load time? The video looks great. Awesome question. So yeah, sometimes it does, but it's super negligible in the greater context of the traffic that you're driving. So generally speaking, if someone needs to wait a half second more, but they're qualified traffic, they'll wait. If someone's just too passive on your site and they don't want to wait a half second more for a load time, it could affect that. But generally speaking, load times aren't an issue on our site. We are on really premium servers. We have amazing media caches. Generally speaking, the videos have rarely had an impact on our conversion rates in either English or Spanish. I hope that helped, Heather. This one's from Mario's. Actually, no, let's see. Heather Harp also asked, what is the cost of a site like Burgess Myers? So that's a great question. Similar to Conrad, it depends. And I'm not just trying to skirt the question, but it really does depend on your market size, where you want to be in terms of volume, where you want to be in terms of your business for the next year to 3 years. We need to have a discussion on that, Heather. I highly recommend going to abogadosnet.com, make an appointment with me on Calendly, find a time that's open, and I will get you that answer in 15 to 20 minutes. I just want to have an honest conversation with you about what it is or where it is you see your business. Conrad, how do you figure out pricing on your side?
I mean, there's a couple elements that go into this. One is the extent of branding positioning that needs to happen, right? So like if it's like I think you did a really good job with that one. We'll stand up to your employers, right? Like getting to that, like that's who they are, the essence of who they are, and how unique that branding positioning comes about and built into the design of things. I think that's frequently missed in legal. Most people think in legal branding positioning is like a middle-aged white dude in a dark suit and a red tie, right? And it's much more than that. It's the who you are, right? Another component of this is how much of a disaster your existing site is, right? From a code perspective, from like, do you have 3 blogs on different domains? So there's like a legacy asset thing to get things up to speed. We call this janitorial SEO, just like cleaning up the mess that you have. That has a big impact on this. And so our sites, the way I do this, and I like the kind of poo-pooing on the cookie cutter thing. Having said that, cookie cutters they're a machine, right? And you can churn those out. And so we have sites that are, we do sites for $200 a month for the cookie cutter, because I just want to spend more of your money advertising to a cookie cutter site than creating an amazing site that we no longer have a budget left over in which to drive that traffic. So my answer to the question is obviously depends, but at the cookie cutter level, it's like $200 a month. At the fully bespoke, we've had a huge mess in the background. We're incorporating 3 different sites with 12,000 different pages. We've done sites in the low 30s. I don't think we've gone over that.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. So yeah, you also get what you pay for, and it all really comes down to where you see your business, because at the end of the day, it comes down to how much business we're generating. But yeah, please schedule time. I would love to speak with you. Mario also asked, how do you recommend to handle translation issues on intake? Is it just a matter of making sure intake employees are bilingual, or are there third-party services that people utilize? Yeah, that's an awesome question, Mario. So there are two components. Generally speaking, and I'll only speak to our members, I'm sure Conrad has a different experience, but generally speaking, most firms that we work with have bilingual staff that can answer calls during office hours. Now, how you want to answer an intake is different in Spanish versus English, generally speaking. Again, generally speaking, in English, it's very easy to get personal information at the very top of a call. In Spanish, you have to earn trust and, you know, really discuss the sensitive matter at hand, and then collect personal information at the end. That's one of the biggest differences we see on handling intake. It's not just a translation exercise. You have to understand the sensitivities of each market. There are third-party services. Our official answering service partner is Lex Reception. They're based in Texas. They're awesome. If you want a connection to Manny Sandoval, who's the head of accounts over there, I'd be happy to create an intro. What they have is a great 24/7 bilingual service. A lot of our members use it after hours. Sometimes they use it as their sole answering service. So, you know, with our program, we can customize the intake flow. You know, business hours, we can send it to your cell phone or a receptionist, and it'll be pursuant to each language tracking phone number. And after hours, you can send them all to an answering service like Lex Reception. There are several answering services like Lex Reception who do bilingual intake. We find that they're probably the best one, which is why we're proud to call them a partner.
So one of the keys that you just said here that I think you could potentially gloss over, but this is doing Spanish the best way.
Correct.
Is literally having, he talked about, Hugo, you said dynamic call tracking numbers, which means you know if people are coming to the site, coming to you via Spanish or English. That means you can route that phone number to one of two phones on your front desk. And when the red phone rings, you answer in Spanish. So you talked about the trust, right? If you pick up the phone answering in Spanish, there is a whole game changer in terms of how you start the relationship with that person, right? If they have looked for you in Spanish, if they've looked for what you do in Spanish, they've come to your site in Spanish, and they called you and you answer in Spanish, it is a whole different level of engagement with that prospective client. Now, yeah, you can switch quickly from English to Spanish, but I love the answering in Spanish because it's a complete system.
Yeah, it's a standard. I mean, before we go live in our campaigns, especially bilingual campaigns, we do test calls, secret shopper calls, to make sure that they're answering accordingly. You know, in California, the state bar allows for, you know, Spanish trade names or secondary trade names. We want to make sure that the Spanish calls are answered in that secondary Spanish trade name in Spanish. So it is huge. It can make or break your conversions out of the gates. So that's a great question. We'll also let's see. What do you mean by email and text reminders? This is from Linda Krieger. So, you know, I'll kind of recap the goal on text and email reminders. So, Linda, when you're running ad campaigns or you're running, you know, robust SEO campaigns, you're collecting all this data that you invested in, from phone calls to chats to web forms to emails. The data is only coming in as a result of your investment. What we're saying is you can protect and further the return on that investment by putting that data into automated email and text systems. So I'll give you an example. One of our PI members wanted to run a $500 giveaway, and we promoted this on text and email. So we took their 15,000 plus records, put them into an email system, put them into a text system, and we blasted and promoted that offer away. And the reason we did that was because we wanted to further extend their reach outside of just paid media and SEO. So what we're doing is we're remarketing it's such a tired word, but it really is, or remarketing in email and text to all this data that you've already invested in. And so you could run giveaways, you could run holiday reminders, you could even run birthday greetings, incentives for referrals, as ethically as you can. There's so many different ways to utilize all that data that you've invested in through automation on text and email reminders. There's plenty of software like MailChimp, Constant Contact, Textedly, that'll cost you anywhere between 50 and a couple $100 a month to routinely be in front of thousands of people on your list. So, protect your investment, further it. You really remarket to it, because if you've spoken to them once, you should always be in front of them as the trusted, legal partner that most people need. Any thoughts on that, Conrad?
No, I mean, this is an automation and customer service thing. Just communicating. Let me give an example. My people know that if someone sends them an email, their job is to say, "Hey, got your email, working on it." Right? It's just like, I'm here. Like, it's the response. And you can automate a lot of this just by and it keeps people knowing that you are continuing to be engaged with what you're doing, right? And it's important.
Yep. Manny asks, will a video hero section help, or an image carousel is better? Okay, I think they're asking if an image carousel, or a rotating image, or a video hero section will perform better. In our experience, video backgrounds do quite well. They convert the best, especially on landing pages, like specific landing pages. What are you seeing on your side, Conrad?
So for me, my bias here is towards site speed. Someone asked this question about video and site speed before. Yeah. And so we have moved away from let me rephrase this. The longer the video is, the slower your site is going to load, right?
Great point.
Period.
Yes.
And so you can still have that movement, which is important. Mm-hmm. But if you truncate that to a 2.5 second clip,
yep,
right? That is actually impactful. I hate these. I think they look gaudy from a design perspective. The trust marks work. They just do, yeah. Right? And so I would go with, ideally your homepage has trust marks very close to the top, ideally not within that non-scrollable area, and a short video. So you're minimizing site speed issues.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You have to be deliberate on the video that you use in terms of resolution, the length of the video, how it's cropped. Like, that will have an impact on your site speed for sure. Yeah. So you got to do it the right way. You got to make it really economical so that it doesn't impact it, so that people don't leave altogether. Two different camps, but both with the same end goal for sure. Let's see. Christine David asks, what other info do you see important above the fold? For example, live chat, case results, testimonials. And do you believe in having social media links above the fold? I do not believe in this. So I think it comes down to the 5-second rule. What we found is what converts best is, do we know who you are? Like, can we get a sense of who you are in the first 5 seconds and what you do? And do we know where your locality is based on the number that you're advertising? Those to me are the most critical. Conrad, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to think about is every page is a homepage, right? Most people do not enter your site via your homepage, and so you need to look at every page as a homepage. My gut tells me that imagery speaks very quickly. So one of the before and after, one of the befores of the before and after that we looked at earlier today, there was no imagery on their practice area pages, right? Imagery communicates so much so quickly that becomes very, very important. And so I would be thinking about every page. Who are we? What do we do? And is it easy enough to contact you? And I think part of your question was around chat and there was chat, form fills, etc. In many cases, those are installed via plugin, which just drop an icon somewhere on top of your site, right?
Yep.
And you end up with this Frankenstein monster of like all these different buttons that you can push to contact, email, chat, text, form fill, phone call, call us now. Like it's frequently overkill, but like test this, right? And especially if you have a lot of traffic, like, don't listen to me. Find out if I'm right? Test
Right.
it, figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, and it does vary by practice area for sure. A criminal defense potential client is very different than that of a a potential client. It varies by practice area, by region, by what time of day they went on your site. I mean, it's wild, the number of variables that you can test.
Yeah.
This one's an interesting one from Joseph Dasa. Joseph wants us to roast his site. You want to do it in 2 minutes?
So I think I've been kind of going over this in the background as we were talking through things. So I did the site-colon search on this. You've got 520 pages of content. Your title tags, and lots of your title tags end with "call us today," "call us today," "call us today." Not sure that that's actually helping you, and because most of them look the same, I think that's a bit problematic. Also, with 520 pages, I bet you have pages that aren't doing anything for you, right? I bet there's a bunch of content on here that is completely not doing anything for you. I can't come across. So let me, I can't find an example, but usually with 520 pages, I suspect that you've got 100 pages that have never generated any content in the last 12 months, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to ask yourself, why do we have those pages? So that's kind of off the top of my head. And I'll do one more diagnostic while you talk, Hugo.
Sure. It's interesting. At least we get to know who you are. I think that's fairly standard. But in terms of the brand positioning, fast, aggressive, and compassionate, it's honestly one of the most played out brand positions in legal marketing. We try to avoid. We have a checklist with our copywriters of words to avoid. These are the ones they have to avoid. So it doesn't make anyone feel like you're particularly unique in the market. And keep in mind, if someone, especially on paid traffic, is looking at your site, they're looking at 5 other sites in a matter of 10 minutes. So, looking all the same is probably not going to help you all that much. I like the photo though. It's pretty nice.
So here's the other thing. Oh my, I just went to your contact page. You're in Sacramento. You've given everyone's email address on here. That's probably making this is a nightmare. I mean, I can scrape this really quickly and just spam the crap out of you if I wanted to. I would probably not do this. And the other thing, and this is why every site is unique, your domain, you don't have a strong backlink profile. You're in a big city in a tech savvy state, and you do personal injury and workers' comp. It's unlikely that you're killing it from an SEO perspective. That's my take.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not getting spam already, you're going to get spammed. This is a spam machine, this page. You should probably take this page down for the time being until those emails are removed for sure. And guarantee is spelled wrong. So that's something that will definitely make me think twice about your organization.
Also, why do you have an 800 number? So this is a bigger thing. I don't know this. I haven't dug too deep into your site, but you've got, you think people aren't going to call you because they don't want to incur the cost of the phone call? That's crazy. And when you have a phone number, when you have multiple phone numbers built into your header, the likelihood that this is a problem you're not doing dynamic call tracking. I don't know that for certain, but I'd have to look into your code. But I suspect this is your primary phone number, 1819. It is your primary phone number. So look into your code. That you're not using dynamic call tracking. You have no idea how people are calling you.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things in Hugo's top 10 list is use dynamic call tracking numbers. You have no idea from what marketing efforts are actually generating inbounds for you, which means you're running blind.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely blind. Oh boy,
Yeah.
I got a whole bunch.
Yeah, we got a lot of requests. Let's do a rapid fire. We have 5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes. 5 minutes on these three. Does that work?
5 minutes each?
No. Just a minute on each one of these. Yeah, we can knock this out.
So here's your deal. I'm looking at Miller and Zoyce, right? Yeah, okay. Miller and Zoyce. You have a huge content map, right? Your content map is 2,500 pages of content. There's no way there's 2,500 interesting pages of content in the world about personal injury in Maryland. Mm-mm. So like right off the bat, there's concerns around your content map. Secondly, sorry, let me go back to what I was looking at. Oh, this is Justia. So by the way, Justia does a very good job, especially on the East Coast in PI. Mm-hmm. Tim Stanley, who runs that place, is quite brilliant. Your content map is enormous. I should have realized that this was a Justia site off the bat.
Yeah, it also helps with what the intent is. Is it organic, or is it the destination for paid ads, right? I think that always helps with the context of whether or not the site is sufficient or not. They're a great company. They built some great sites, but couldn't agree more. It's a pretty extensive site map, and I'm not sure how valuable that is.
But okay, so look at the other thing. 800 number. You have an 800 number, and if you look at your first, you could be anywhere in the country. You could be in Alaska. You could you're not communicating location in any way I can't even see the word Maryland anywhere on here.
Yeah, you kind of have to fish for it. So, right there. It's right there.
So you got to scroll
below the fold. Yeah, below the fold. Yeah, that should be over $100 million in settlements and verdicts in Maryland, or leading attorneys in Maryland.
Something like that.
Or attorneys at law in Maryland. Yeah, great point. Let's take a look at computer law. This one is Jack Russo. Big COVID. I'm a big stickler about wasted real estate. Our devs hear about this from me all the time. So why are we putting so much attention on real estate to things that could be otherwise handled in a single line of code? So computer law group, lawyers for the internet economy. Not even sure what that means, to be honest. What do you think that means, Conrad?
I felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Pay online, kind of greedy. Whenever I see a pay online, I'm like, I'm out. I mean, that's in any organization.
Your blog's broken. If you have to visit our blog, it goes to broken page. So that's a no-no.
Yeah, I mean, so legal. So, I mean, okay, here it is. So it's below the fold. Legal support for entrepreneurs, startups, and emerging technology clients. I guess, that's fairly broad. You're in Palo Alto. You have access to the greatest designers and engineers and UI brain trust. Come on, you need some help. You need to give me a call. And remember, only Conrad if you sign up with us. Blackstone PC. Let's take a look. I know you guys. Yeah, I've spoken to you before. Yeah. I mean, I actually went on an exhaustive Zoom call with one of your team members about this site. Should probably call me back so I could go through that with you again one more time, Jamie. But yeah, so I like the trust badges. Here's the thing about PI in LA. Some people will care that you were in the Hollywood Reporter, THR. Some really won't. I don't know what an entertainment organization is going to do for you in terms of building trust. Similar to Business Insider, I would probably take those out and focus on the LA Times and other, like being on Cision, that's a syndicate. Being on New York Magazine, I don't know. This is very hyper LA, and I don't know how much value it adds to most people who've just been in an auto accident, who just want settlement money. So that's my initial take. I like the
phone number in the header.
Yeah, it's right here. 310.
Oh, yeah, look at that. There's so by the way, total wrong. I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
It's completely in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
It's like the most understated. That's a terrible header. By the way, by and large, I like the site visually. It's actually a really small site. It looks like a really big site, but it's actually a really small site from a sitemap perspective. That phone number over here, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Check this out. Go hit the you missed the biggest hit here, Hugo. Go try and hit there's the habla español, and I'm gonna butcher Spanish. Hit that.
Oh no. Oh man. That's not good. That opened up an email here
It's trying to email you.
to an email that doesn't exist. That's a mega
Dude,
broken
talk to
link.
Hugo right there. Like
Yeah.
this is exactly why
Yeah.
Hugo is doing what he's doing, because of this mistake right here.
Yeah.
You have just convinced whoever speaks Spanish and wants to talk to you, if they've landed on this site, that you know nothing about the Spanish market. So that's your disaster right there.
And ironically, in one of the largest Spanish-speaking markets in the country, Los Angeles. So
this
I mean,
is exactly
yeah.
why Hugo exists. Like this is a this is the mess.
Well, so I know we went way over time, as we usually do on our webinars. Everyone's been super engaging. We have about 10 other open questions left. I'll fire them. I'll fire away at them very quickly. Thanks again for wanting to participate in some last minute roasts here. Really appreciate that. I'll just rapid fire these. How should the phone answering be improved? Conrad and I were speaking about this. Get a phone answering service. That's the shortcut. It's an additional cost, but at least you know your calls are going to be answered in both English and Spanish.
I'll give you this one. Track the number.
Yeah.
You don't know what that number is, and it's worse than you think it is. So you'll figure it out if you know that 10% of your calls don't get answered. It will make you figure it out.
Lynn asks, you said something about making sure the phone number tracks. That's exactly what Conrad was talking about. You need, we call it number flipping. When a number flips based on where the traffic is coming from. That is a technical and it's a development request that you need with a trusted marketing partner. We'd be happy to help you out with that. If you're a member of our program, it's standard in our service. It's not an upgrade. Ultimately, every time we generate a call for you, whether it's from paid, organic, or earned media, you're going to know exactly where that call came from. That is super important. What's the reminder software you mentioned? Sometimes the words are not as clear as they could be. I use Calendly for appointments, to set up appointments with attorneys. So Calendly is great. It connects to your calendar and it shows other prospective customers or clients what your availability is. And they could pick a time based on your availability. All they need to do is enter in their email and that person will get automated reminders of their meeting with you. It's been a game changer in terms of drop-offs, at least in our organization and with our members. Our members, a percentage of them that do have Calendly integrated have seen their appointment rates increase because of it. In regards to trust badges outside of your site, how can these be used in other marketing areas? It's not just your website, it's on your videos, it's on your social media. I mean, you can create content out of any trust badge. And what are your thoughts on that, Conrad?
I mean, they're all more than happy to sell you an overpriced plaque to throw in the lobby.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so to that point, again, some of them questionable, others not so much. They're really meaningful in your community. If you have a key to the city, we want to see that. If you're one of the best places to work in your city, we want to see that.
I think they're all questionable. It's just the extent to which they're questionable, but
Fair.
They're all validation, regardless of how garbage they are. They're all validators to people who don't know what they mean, which is why I hate them. But like they work. They
convert. Yeah, you can't deny it. Do you ever do B2B sites for lawyers, law firms, mediators, arbitrators? Yes, we do. Please schedule an appointment with me. I'll send you some examples and I'll show you some examples in real time. Conrad too. Let's share in this. Mike Wells asks, in terms of accessibility, what solutions do you recommend for firms who need to ensure their websites are user-friendly for that audience of prospects? Great question. ADA accessibility, at least in our understanding, we don't have an official word on this. This is not legal advice. It depends on the size of business. There are certain conditions. What do you see on your side, Conrad? We've just been asked this question more often in the last 3 months or so.
Yeah, ADA compliance is really difficult. I actually took a whole bunch of classes on this, and I had my art designer spearheaded this. There's two things to know about ADA compliance. One is there is no precedent on how it actually works. So most of the lawsuits are fundamentally nuisance lawsuits. Having said that, there's a very clear set of standards by which your site can be evaluated, and it's
Right.
page by page evaluation of the site. The second thing, so a very good designer will have this in mind when they build out a site. A second thing to think about is the plugins that say, it's ADA compliant. Do not make them that I would not solve your ADA compliance problem with a plugin. I would solve it with a designer, which is a lot more expensive. But if it's something you think about, like, it's important. And you can look through your own site and look for the most glaring factor is like gray on white, white on gray text, right? Lack of text size and I'm struggling for the right word, but like if it's hard to read it, for me, I'm 46 years old. If I take my glasses off and I have to squint, you may have an ADA compliance problem. And it's typically a font size issue as well as a contrast is the word I'm looking for issue.
Yeah, great point. And so again, there are rules for which organizations do need it, which of them don't. If you do not take shortcuts to Conrad's point. You got to get a marketing partner who has a deep amount of experience in knowing all the nuances. These plugins, arguably, most of them, frankly, they suck. Please remind us of the video email providers. This is from Austin Holian. I think he meant the ones where you can send automations or send out personalized video messages.
We push clients to BombBomb. If you use a sophisticated CRM system, you'll also have like that can be an add-on to that. But BombBomb, it's like $500 a year. It's super simple integration, and I've sent a lot of people to them.
Great, yeah. So I think it's on the automation side. What we've used before in the past, we use this on sales. We use this for our members. We use this in internal work. Loom is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, Loom is great. You can the interface is so great. You just click record. You record a quick message. When it's done, you enter in the email for who you want that link sent to, and you could send a potential client, a thank you video message, or a reminder to send in some documentation, or an invitation to attend an event, or to invite them to your office or a Zoom meeting. Loom is great. So there are many video options. The more you can use video, the better you stand out. I just think it's a great customer service tool. Cheryl, I would love to roast another site. We are out of time.
I'll give you two. One,
okay.
You talk about doing English, Spanish, and Tagalog, and yet your site only is in English. Okay, so talk to Hugo. Two, your most important pages, your practice area pages, you don't have one. You have services, and they're all lumped into the same bloody page. So no one is ever going to find you for immigration, because that is just one part of one page on your site. So you need more content about what you do.
Got it.
Multiple languages done correctly.
Excellent. And Eric Post, ericpostlaw.com. Did you have a chance to look at his, Conrad?
Eric Post. No.
All right. So yeah, and I think we're out of time. I would love to go through it, but Eric, let's set up some time. We need a chat. And Ron Miller just made a comment that doing national tour work too, it is very tricky. Absolutely. I think, but Conrad, his claim to fame, or at least one of his claims to fame, he got the mesothelioma clicked down to like $1. What was it?
That's the only thing on my bio that's a complete lie.
Okay.
I never bought mesothelioma lawyer for under $40. I think in my bio, like I was sitting on a plane one day trying to make my bio more interesting, and so that is a complete flat out lie. I never bought mesothelioma lawyer.
Okay.
I think it's $4.76. It was a full on lie.
All right. Fair enough. Well, Conrad, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you to our team for putting this together, this production together. It's a ton of work in the weeks leading up to these monthly events. They're now monthly events. We hope you can join the next ones coming up. We'll have an email sent to our list regarding the theme of the next webinar. We hope to see you there. Thank you so much again. And please make an appointment with us. Let's help you out. Let's get you bilingual. Again, it's not an option anymore. It's the new standard. All right, everyone. Have a very good day. Take care.